Полине было 27, и она работала таксистом, оставшись без мужа с маленьким сынишкой Ярославом на руках. Молодую женщину бросил непутевый муж и сошелся с женщиной постарше, которая могла потакать всем его капризам и делать дорогие подарки. Сам он был любителем тусовок и прожигателем жизни, которому не нужна была ни жена, ни малолетний сын. Мужчина нигде не работал и все обязанности сваливал на Полю. Поэтому она была даже рада, что супруг ее оставил. Она жила в однокомнатной квартире, доставшейся от родителей, и была благодарна, что жилье свое, не нужно переплачивать. Соседка по лестничной площадке, тетя Галя, помогала молодой матери и брала к себе Ярика на время, пока Полина была на работе. Это очень ей помогало и позволяло отлучаться из дома и по другим делам. Галина была приятной женщиной и не возражала. Иногда могла и покушать приготовить в квартире женщины, пока та оставляла с ней сына. Полина ехала с вызова за рулем автомобиля и размышляла о своей жизни, углубляясь в воспоминания о прошлом. Ее детство было не самым легким. Отец погиб в аварии, водил рейсовую маршрутку, а однажды в него врезалась машина. За рулем сидел пьяный мажор, который вылетел на встречную полосу, и столкновения избежать не удалось. Хотя отец Поли пытался исправить ситуацию, чтобы спасти и себя, и пассажиров. Ей было всего 7 лет, когда пришлось проститься с папой. Похороны мужчины стали самым страшным воспоминанием для нее, о котором до сих пор было неприятно думать. В доме царило горе. Все плакали, особенно мама. По характеру маленькую Полю часто сравнивали с мальчишками. Именно с ними она и играла во дворе. Гоняла мяч, стреляла из рогатки, могла и в драку полезть, если понадобится. Соседи подшучивали, что родители женщины ждали на свет мальчика, а родилась Поля. Но она не была задирой и гулякой, стараясь во всем помогать овдовевшей матери. С детства она интересовалась различными автомобилями и мечтала стать водителем, как отец. Ни о какой другой профессии девочка и думать не могла. К совершеннолетию не стало и мамы. Сердце было больное из-за пережитых испытаний, долго не протянуло. Полина осталась одна. На время она перестала встречаться с друзьями и отгородилась от внешнего мира, чтобы залечить душевные раны и смириться с новой потерей. Оправившись, девушка все еще не отпускала мечты о карьере водителя, и, видимо, сказывались отцовские гены. Окончив автошколу, Поля получила права, но только автомобиля не было. Но она не отчаивалась, со временем планировала накопить. До декрета Полина пробовала себя в роли продавца в продуктовом магазине, за прилавком которого состоялось знакомство с будущим мужем-проходимцем. Он был обаятельным, умел красиво ухаживать, только домашняя рутина и алименты не входили в круг его интересов. После его ухода женщина приняла важное решение – стать таксистом, ведь она так давно об этом мечтала. Подруги удивлялись, что она сделала такой выбор, но ее ничто не могло остановить. После того, как Полину взяли на работу в соответствующую компанию, ее коллеги-мужчины обсмеяли новую сотрудницу, но она ничуть не расстроилась. Водила она умело, аккуратно и всегда вовремя справлялась с заказами. Пассажиры оставались довольными, говорили только хорошее о ней, как о водителе. В один из рабочих дней, возвращаясь на базу, Поля ехала по трассе в пригороде. Впереди показался выездной пост ДПС, и один из гаишников помахал ей жезлом, чтобы она остановилась для проверки документов. Другой причины женщина не видела, ведь старалась не нарушать и следила за знаками. Полина послушно отдала представившемуся ей Роману Владимировичу свои водительские права и техпаспорт, но мужчина, проверяя данные, позволил себе негромко прокомментировать, будто женщине за рулем не место. У нее нет той реакции и сноровки, которые нужны. К чему такие разговоры? Я ведь ничего не нарушила. Тут же возмутилась Полина откровенно хамскому поведению сотрудника дорожной службы. А почему у вас номера забрызганы, Полина Игоревна? Так ведь погода какая, слякоть. Не могу же я их на ходу протирать. Это ваше транспортное средство, и вы обязаны следить за его состоянием, отрезал мужчина. Вы меня простите, но это абсурд. Каждые 5 минут останавливаться невозможно, особенно на трассе. Все водители сейчас находятся в этих условиях. Роман тут же поменялся в лице. И дома, и на службе женщины всегда находились под его покровительством, поэтому он не привык, чтобы с ним так говорили или возражали в споре. Разозлившись, он решил проучить строптивую девицу, которая вовремя не уловила ситуацию и довела его до белого коленя. «Знаете что? Покажите-ка мне вашу аптечку», – сказал мужчина и дал Поле выйти из автомобиля. Та нехотя вышла на холодный воздух. Роману повезло. Аптечка женщины была просрочена. К этому он и прицепился, видя, как она теряется и тоже закипает. Что и требовалось доказать, гражданочка. А вы утверждаете, что порядочный водитель. Выходит, что нет. Пройдемте со мной в нашу машину. Будем вам штраф выписывать. Женщине ничего больше не оставалось, как взять из сумочки кошелек и направиться вслед за Романом. В салоне их служебной машины сидел напарник, который встретил ее с легкой улыбкой и был более расположен к ненапряженной беседе. «Я ведь не нарушил ничего серьезного. Зачем вы так со мной?» По-человечески обратилась к ним Полина, понимая, что ситуация приняла серьезный оборот. Она ведь не грубила Роману и не отказывалась сотрудничать. Он словно специально ее задел. «Мы, Полина Игоревна, не злодеи. Смотрим за порядком. А раз есть нарушение, наша работа выписать вам штраф в качестве наказания и предупреждение к следующим нарушениям. Впредь будьте внимательны. Никогда не знаешь, когда понадобится исправная аптечка или огнетушитель. На дороге всякое бывает». Когда Поля услышала сумму штрафа, она едва не вскрикнула. Откуда такая цифра, она не поняла. Но Роман решил наживиться по полной и вписал в квитанцию ряд мелких нарушений, каким только мог придраться. Женщина понимала, что расплатиться своими средствами ей не удастся. Она не возила с собой все сбережения. Не рассчитывала, что и такие вымогатели попадутся. К тому же второй сидел с таким невинным видом, словно он ни при чем. А ведь мог и остановить Романа в пределах разумного. Поля решила взять недостающую часть денег из заработанных за сегодняшний день, надеясь позже договориться с начальником. Другого выхода у нее не было. Но начальник не стал выслушивать ее оправданий и раскричался на всю контору, обвиняя женщину в грабеже. «Это не ваши личные деньги, и вы не имеете права ими распоряжаться». «Сергей Евгеньевич, я все верну до конца недели. Но негде мне было взять эти деньги. Они бы так мою машину отогнали. Я бы вообще без работы осталась». Давила на жалость Полина, надеясь, что мужчина войдет в ее положение. «Я этот штраф из вашей зарплаты вычту в 3-кратном размере, чтобы неповадно было в мои деньги свои ручонки запускать», – заключил начальник. Дальнейшие препирательства с мужчиной ни к чему не привели. Он остался непреклонен и все равно злился. Поля вышла из кабинета в слезах. В ее планы не входило так раскошеливаться. Она надеялась купить с зарплаты новую кроватку Ярику. А теперь с этим придется повременить из-за причуд одного инспектора. С работы женщина шла, опустив голову. Ей не хотелось, чтобы прохожие видели, как она плачет. Поле было очень обидно за такую несправедливость. Еще и начальник наживался. А она ведь его ни разу не подвела. Не реагировала на насмешки коллег, не ходила к нему жаловаться. А он с ней не посчитался. К тому времени на улице уже распогодилось. Стояла духота. На остановке было много людей. Все толпились под козырьком, чтобы солнечный свет не нагревал их уставшие спины и головы. Вдруг одному из толпы стало плохо. Парень старше 20 стал задыхаться, побледнел, шарил по карманам с ужасом. Люди сразу от него отшатнулись и стали наблюдать, что будет дальше. «Очередной наркоман, прости господи. Сколько их здесь околачивается? Мелочь клянчат, все им мало», – причитали люди, глядя на его страдания. «По делам ему. Может, одумается и перестанет всякую дрянь употреблять». Никто не протянул бедняге руку помощи. Все решили, что он сам виноват, балуясь запрещенными веществами. «Расступитесь!» – прикрикнула на окружающих Полина. «Вы что, не видите, ему плохо?» Она всех растолкала и прошла к Андрею, который уже скатился по пластиковой стене остановки и сел на пол. Женщина расстегнула воротник его рубашки, чтобы ему было легче дышать, и вызвала скорую. Все это время она говорила с парнем, чтобы тот не терял сознание. К счастью, машина скорой помощи появилась на остановке в считанные минуты. Оказалось, что у Андрея астма. Он начал задыхаться и только тогда понял, что ингалятор оставил дома. В голове от жары и с перепугу все помутнело. Вот он чуть и не потерял сознание. Приехавшие медики сказали Поле, что она спасла ему жизнь, позвонив им. Женщина знала, что не угомонится, пока не удостоверится, что с парнем все в порядке, поэтому узнала у медиков, в какую больницу его повезут. На следующий день Андрея должны были выписывать. Поля приехала, чтобы навестить его. «Здравствуйте». Она вошла в палату тогда, когда Андрей уже переоделся и собирал свои вещи. «О, это ведь вы меня спасли. Спасибо вам огромное». Парень без стеснения сжал свою спасительницу в крепких объятиях. «Врачи сказали, что если бы не ваше вмешательство, меня бы сейчас здесь не было. Я просто не могла иначе. Была такая жара. Думала, что у вас тепловой удар. Как мне вас отблагодарить? Могу я угостить вас обедом? Ну, в удобный для вас день, разумеется». «Ох, думаю, это будет сложно. Я постоянно на работе или с маленьким сыном». Раздумывала Поля о своих планах. «Так возьмите его с собой. Сходим туда, где будет интересно ребенку. Не смущайтесь. Я хочу сказать спасибо не только словами». «Раз вы настаиваете, давайте обменяемся номерами. Ближе к своему выходному я вам позвоню». В этот момент в палату без стука вошел Роман Владимирович, тот самый инспектор, который вчера нагло раскрутил женщину на огромный штраф. Увидев Полину рядом со своим сыном, он замер в растерянности, но прикрыл за собой дверь. «О, отец, это Полина, а она вчера вызвала скорую, когда мне стало плохо». «Здравствуйте, Полина Игоревна», – переминаясь с ноги на ногу, ответил мужчина. «Неожиданная встреча». «Не скажите». Поля скрестила руки на груди. «Андрей, мы выйдем на минуту? Можно вас?» Полина вышла в больничный коридор вместе с Романом, который весь покрылся потом и стал промачивать платком свой красный лоб. «Вы меня простите, бога ради. Не знаю, что на меня вчера нашло. Обнаглел я знатно, да, понимаю. Я вам все верну прямо сейчас». Мужчина полез в карман рубашки. «Нет, знаете что? Вы вернете деньги моему начальнику, потому что он с меня взял в 3 раза больше. Объясните ему ситуацию, тогда будем в расчете. Я мать-одиночка и не могу раздаривать деньги». Да, я понимаю». После визита инспектора в офис такси конфликт между Полиной и начальником был исчерпан, а она осталась при своей зарплате. Работу женщина тоже сохранила и также с удовольствием выезжала на вызовы. Но на встречу с Андреем она все-таки сходила, оставив Ярослава под присмотром девушки в игровой комнате торгового центра. Знакомые в это время обедали и общались. Но это была их не последняя встреча. У молодых людей оказалось много общего, и Андрей предложил встретиться еще. Узнав о вымогательствах отца на работе, он был в шоке и высказал Роману свое недовольство его поведением. «Папа, тебя весь город знает, а ты такие спектакли устраиваешь». Мужчине было стыдно. Он решил, что ему пора уйти на покой. На пенсии он планировал перебраться в деревню, завести свой огород и самостоятельно выращивать овощи. Может, еще и живность какую-то заведет. Полина и Андрей встречались уже несколько месяцев. За это время Ярик привязался к парню и даже стал иногда называть его папой. Это подтолкнуло пару к тому, чтобы перейти на новую ступень и узаконить свои отношения. Роман был рад, что сын нашел свою судьбу. Звал к себе в деревню в гости, обещал покатать внучка на лошадке, которую недавно купил. Заманивал маленькими крольчатами. Новая семья приняла предложение и решила поехать на природу на выходных, чтобы отдохнуть от предсвадебной суеты, которая их охватила. Оля не могла нарадоваться своему счастью и надеялась, что у них еще будут детки с Андреем.
Если вам понравился рассказ, просьба поддержать меня кнопкой «Палец вверх». А чтобы узнавать о выходе новых интересных историй, при подписке нажмите колокольчик. Всего вам доброго.
All right, everyone's presentations are done. Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me and began to speak. There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. I'm leaving. After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick! Is something wrong? Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my 2nd year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. I will do my best. Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. Did you not hear what I said? I'm sorry. I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, I'm thirsty. Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children. With zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job. Having joined the company wanting to do customer service. I don't care what they say, I plan to quit anytime, he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look. To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day. Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. So, you all get a chance. As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them. It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. All right, everyone's presentations are done. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me. There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. Still here? Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. I'm leaving. I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick! What's wrong? Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself, had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized. Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason. What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do. I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you. Please. Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, yes. That's Nick for you. Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, I'm very sorry. Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, get his boss here immediately. It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. What is that idiot doing? All right, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next. Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you. I immediately followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was. As the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize. Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. What kind of training are you giving your subordinates? Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed. I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their in. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1, if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry. Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong. Mike! What have you done? Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. I didn't do anything wrong. You're still saying that? Look at him. Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract? Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go. Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him. There's no way he was pushed aside. Don't make things worse here. He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he? I don't remember that part. I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you've failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself, this could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too. I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.